Okay, chart time. I'm going to add a few pairs that I don't usually look at as I see trade opportunities on them or have been advised of trade opportunities on them. I'm going to start with US dollar yen, favorite pair of mine. I'm still looking for higher for wave D of the triangle. It is under, importantly, it's under resistance here on the weekly time frame, and it has not gotten over that, so something to be aware of. The weekly, there's not really much to say about the weekly. The previous week's bearish engulfing did not see any follow through, and what's become clear so far is that every dip in this is being bought, and that selling pressure has not managed to push this down in any significant way. You can see over the past however long, dips have been bought. So what I'm looking at, if I go to the daily, I don't really know how to count this as any other way than a triangle. I mean, there is the possibility that we're looking at a new high here and then a deeper down move, but I'm not going to run that idea because I want to interpret every swing as a bullish swing. I want to give the bulls the advantage and look at everything with an upward edge, every dip. Because so far in this decline on the 4-hour, we've been looking at three-wave moves here. That's a 3. This is a three-wave move here. This is also a three-wave move, in my opinion. And so far coming up, we may be looking at a three-wave move here so far. Now, at the very local point here, it is possible that it's turning into a bullish flag and it rises from here. And that would change the view of it overall, as I'm kind of preferring right now. But that has to be seen on Tuesday and Wednesday when the market opens, I think on Tuesday after Christmas, on Boxing Day. One view I have here is that, again, like on the monthly, this is the 4-hour chart, we may be looking at a bullish triangle. It's not perfect, but look at the way it's contracting and the way it's being kept up, basically. Ignore the horizontal line. I started to put these horizontal lines on the chart so I can mark the daily 8 EMAs, so I'm aware of any interactions that may come around those, as they are consistently reactive. So I'm looking at possibly 5 waves into here for A or one of the possible bullish wedge. And then we have a correction for A, B, C, D, and if it sells off in the coming days, E, and then a turn higher for the triangle, bullish triangle idea. The terminus point on this is C, so it would have to stay above 112.03, and that would allow it to move up for D of the triangle up here. So if I see a sell-off on into next week, I'll be looking at a buy opportunity on it. Counter to this market, there is, of course, what's looking rather like a bullish situation in gold, which it has a negative correlation. It's hard to be bearish on gold here. You know, you've got the monthly breakout scenario, which has not kicked in yet. The stochastics are kind of holding up here. The only bearish scenario I really have on this is the possibility of a triangle because it has not taken off. I would suspect this is kind of the opposite of the bullish US dollar yen triangle I have. I would be looking at this to kind of fail up here and move down to complete wave D of the triangle. And that would see US dollar yen rise. As I've said before, I have a stronger feeling about US dollar yen than I do about gold. And my view on dollar yen is up, clearly. So I will be looking for a breakout in the next week or two upward here. Now, if there is a failure again at the resistance line, which is holding for now, I will be looking at a larger correction here on the daily, like this, to fill the gap about 110.83 and then a move up. So I'm going to stay bullish on this regardless because structurally the pattern has not changed on the monthly, and I'm still looking for higher for D and then lower for E if this is a triangle. Otherwise, I'm looking higher here above 118 and then a rollover. It's one of those two for me. I don't have a bearish view. So far, the stochastics are holding up on the monthly, so I'll keep looking higher on this. Another pair I like the look of, let's have a look at Aussie New Zealand. Talked about this a few times in the past few videos. The wedge shape is speculative at the moment. I'm looking at a move higher, however, because the downward gyrations in this have been a 3 so far, as you can see here. And it's looking very much like a bullish flag pattern on the daily. You can see it's got the downward sloping, upward biased look to it. So I'm trying to find a move up here to take us back, to take it and me back towards 112, 113, 114. The wedge idea is what I like, given that I'm looking at an impulsive nature here, a very long sideways motion here, and the upward swing from there is a move in 3s. So how I'm interpreting this, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3 so far. I'm looking for another gyration up to a new high above A and then a rollover. Unless this turns into like a bullish wedge, maybe. I don't want to speculate so far ahead. I just want to look locally. The weekly so far, last week's candle did engulf the previous week's semi-bullish red hammer. Technically, that's not a hammer. And especially, I personally don't like red hammers anyway. But confirming price action, such as an engulfing as followed last week, does help a bullish case here. So I am looking on the 4-hour how to interpret this. First of all, it's still under resistance. So keep that in mind. Secondly, that kind of like fake out head and shoulders pattern that I talked about on Twitter, that was similar to what we saw in Euro Australian back in like February or March this year, didn't materialize. What happened instead is it made another upward gyration. And so you have here a succession of new highs in a narrowing wedge so far. So we may be looking at a bullish wedge here. If there is something like a bit of a sideways motion down, there could be a chance to buy this up next week. I'll see how this develops overall. It could also possibly drift out a bit sideways here, as I've seen it do before, and then go. That's pretty common. Or maybe it will terminate up here under resistance and head down for one more. Honestly, I don't know. I can't guess. I've got those 3 scenarios at this point. But overall, my bias is to the upside. So I'm going to look for any kind of like correction in 3 to find support and move higher. At this stage, I don't really see a new low materializing, but maybe it will. Like I said, I don't know, but I'm looking for higher overall. So the bulls have the edge here despite being under resistance. The safe bet on this, if it doesn't just take off, the safe bet on this, of course, is to watch for a breakout, a small 4-hour flag of some kind, and then a move up. Another Aussie pair I liked, thanks to someone else on Twitter who helped me out with this, is the advancement in Aussie Canadian. I used to track this earlier in the year. Ultimately, on the weekly chart, this ended up looking like it might be clearer on the daily, this ended up looking like a series of 3s from this new high here, looking at a series of 3s down, kind of like this, and it's wedged into a new low. And from that new low, we have a 5-wave advance, which I'll go over on the 4-hour in just a second. I want to just look at the monthly first. Actually, let me go with the weekly. We have that 3-wave move up here from that new low. And from, when was this? October last year, we've had a 3-wave move down, basically. So it does look pretty good here to get a further move up towards above 104. Ignore the A and the B on the chart. Those were counts I was working on before, which didn't work out because it ended up correcting. So the movement so far has been corrective. And if at the end of December we can see a bullish hammer on this, that really does open it up for a move higher. And I like the view actually of that move way up. But in any case, locally the bullish price has formed a bullish 5-wave move up from the low. From the low on 6 December, we have 5 waves in here on the 4-hour chart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The hard move up on Friday from the Canadian news did not see, it just turned out to be 3 waves. So as long as the X wave high holds here, I will be looking for a further decline here to form wave 2. And then however deep that appears, if it does appear, I'll be looking for an upward swing in this to a new high, and hopefully to see this carry on because it's looking pretty good now. So there is a 5-wave pattern to work with, and any 3-wave dip can present a bullish opportunity. This is a 3-wave correction, as I talked about on Twitter. The move up on the Canadian GDP news, I think it was GDP news, Canadian news is 3 waves as well. So I'm looking for another 3-wave move, whether it appears as a 5 or a Y or whatever. Looking for one more low in this, preferably. And then let's see what happens. It's looking pretty good to the upside here. So that is a good setup, in my opinion. Aussie strength. Or Canadian weakness, maybe. I'm looking higher in Aussie US dollar too. I'm not going to go over that in this video because I don't really have clarity on it, but I'm looking for higher, probably following a corrective sequence. Okay, another pair I want to talk about. Let me just remember which one that was. Euro pound. 2 scenarios I was looking at. As I mentioned, I'll go over this quickly. Truncation here for 2. Wedge. Leading the new move down. And locally on the 4-hour, this is wedging on the 4-hour. So maybe a new high up into here next week. And if we can see that new high, I'll look for this to roll over, because so far it's not behaving like I talked about, because the other scenario that I was looking at here was for 3 waves here, 3 big waves here for B of a flat, and now we would see a 5-wave advance for wave C of a flat, and then a downward move. I'm not bullish over here on Euro pound. We've already had 5 waves up from 2015. That is done and marked, in my opinion. So I'm looking for, well, I was looking for either for C of a flat, but the price is not behaving like that. And given the wedging shape of it, I'm actually looking for weakness to appear next week or New Year's week and then to roll over. So I'll see how that gets on. 1 second. So that is another thing to watch for at the beginning of January. So I think there are good price patterns on US dollar yen, Aussie New Zealand, Aussie Canadian, and Euro pound. I think we've got 4 charts that are at or that are presenting good possibilities, and to see how local price manifests itself in the coming next couple of weeks. Okay, just to have a look at something more popular, I'm going to skip cable and look just at Euro US dollar just a second. I think that'll be the last one I look at. Yeah, this will be the last one. Okay, sorry, it's a bit messy on the chart with the lines, but that's for me. Okay, we may be looking at a wedge in here on the 4-hour. It's looking higher still at this stage. This boxed area here was the price gap, which has now been filled. So I'm going to remove this as the gap is filled. And I'm wondering if we are looking at a new high here, because one scenario I talked about, we have not seen the sell-off from the gap, and it has not been, there's no bearish impulsive action to the downside. So I'm still looking higher. In this one scenario I talked about is a kind of bigger three-wave correction here to a new high and then a rollover. I'm not feeling at this stage that it's going to be bullish above 121, 122 to a new high. I feel that the price action is not suggesting that. I think this is more of a three-wave move. 3 here, down, 3 up. And this is a three-wave move too. Let me go on the 4-hour, it's a bit clearer. Line City. Okay, so we got 3 waves here, in my opinion. 3 waves here, which I went over step by step on Twitter, I think. And so far, 3-wave moves up, which is contracting and looking a bit wedgy. So I'm wondering if on a new high, we get that new high or close to it, and then roll over. So I'm going to be watching for that in this coming week, and the next week maybe. It needs to be determined and confirmed. Right now, I don't think it's offering much of a good buy setup. There was a buy-in here that we went over. But in any case, one more point on the weekly. There is still that sideways motion. I'm still looking at this too. If there's weakness found up here in the next week or two, I still like the idea that this is going to turn over overall. So see if we get that new high. This is one to be waited on and to be determined. That is really my preferred view with this trend line holding and seeing this high hold overall. I guess another possibility that I'm just considering right now is that it may be, well, I don't know, it could be triangulating. Something like A, B, C, D, E, and then a new thrust high, maybe. It could be triangulating. So I'll present that on at another time and see what kind of price action we get here coming out of the wedge in the next few days, if it is a wedge. But for now, there's no impulsive action to the downside. So if you want to sell this, I frankly don't think it's time to sell this. There's no impulsive action to the downside and no bearish reversal signs. Okay, so there are a few good setups going into the new year already, and let's see how those work out. Okay, bye-bye. Oh, and Merry Christmas.